I used to sleep peacefully at night. Now, every time I close my eyes, I see the faces of the children I was supposed to save, and the monster I became while saving them. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Chen had always believed in the nobility of his profession. 23 years in the military, decorated veteran of 4 major conflicts, and known throughout the Corps as the Guardian, a man who never left anyone behind. "Dad, will you tell me about your medals again?" his 8-year-old daughter Emma would ask every Sunday morning, her small fingers tracing the ribbons on his dress uniform. "Each one represents people we protected, sweetheart. People who got to go home to their families because we did our job." Emma would smile, her eyes shining with pride. "You're a hero, Daddy." Marcus believed it too. Until the day he received orders for Operation Cleansing Dawn. "Gentlemen," General Harrison's voice was cold, clinical. "The Kithra province has been overrun by insurgents. Intelligence reports indicate they're using civilian populations as human shields. Your mission is simple: eliminate the threat, secure the region, establish lasting peace." The briefing room fell silent. These weren't ordinary insurgents, they were guerrilla fighters who had turned an entire province into their stronghold, using women and children as protective cover. "Sir," Marcus raised his hand, "what are the rules of engagement regarding civilians?" The general's eyes hardened. "Colonel Chen, your primary objective is the complete neutralization of hostile forces. Collateral damage is, regrettable but acceptable if it serves the greater good." That phrase would haunt Marcus for the rest of his life, acceptable if it serves the greater good. The first week of Operation Cleansing Dawn went according to plan. Marcus's battalion moved through the outer villages, evacuating civilians, eliminating confirmed insurgents. He was proud of his restraint, his precision. Then came Sergeant First Class Jake Rodriguez, a young soldier under Marcus's command, barely 22, with a photo of his pregnant wife taped inside his helmet. "Colonel, we've got eyes on a suspected insurgent compound," Jake reported through the radio. "But sir, there are kids playing in the courtyard." Marcus studied the compound through his binoculars. Intelligence was certain this was a weapons cache, a command center for the insurgents. But children's laughter echoed from within the walls. "Hold position, Sergeant. I'm calling for more intel." But more intel never came. Instead, came new orders from command: "Time is running out. The longer we wait, the more our people die. Take the compound. Use necessary force." Marcus stared at the message for a long moment. Necessary force. Another phrase that would eat away at his soul. "Rodriguez," his voice was barely above a whisper. "Clear the compound. Minimize civilian casualties." "Sir. How do we minimize what we can't avoid?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus closed his eyes, thinking of Emma, thinking of all the other children who needed protection. Just do your best, son." The assault lasted 6 minutes. When the smoke cleared, they found the weapons cache, and 12 civilians. 8 were combatants. 4 were children. Jake sat in the ruins, his hands shaking, staring at the small body of a girl no older than his unborn daughter. "We did our job, Rodriguez," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "We completed the mission." But Jake's eyes had changed. The bright enthusiasm was gone, replaced by something darker, emptier. "Yes sir," Jake replied. Mission accomplished. As weeks turned to months, Operation Cleansing Dawn became something else entirely. Each mission pushed the boundaries further. Each acceptable loss made the next one easier to justify. Marcus watched his soldiers change. Jake Rodriguez, once quick to smile, now moved through villages with mechanical precision, his humanity bleeding away with each order followed without question. Private Lisa Wong, the medic who used to cry when she couldn't save everyone, now administered first aid with cold efficiency, triaging not by medical need but by military value. Corporal David Turner, who had joined the army to help people, now questioned every civilian's loyalty, seeing enemies in the eyes of children. And Marcus? Marcus became the architect of their transformation. The doctrine is clear, he would tell himself while writing reports that turned mass casualties into strategic successes. We're saving more lives by ending this quickly. But the quickest path to victory required embracing methods that would have horrified the man who once told bedtime stories to his daughter. Colonel Chen, we have intelligence on an insurgent leadership meeting. High-value targets will be present. Civilian presence? Heavy, sir. It's in a school. The old Marcus would have found another way. The new Marcus calculated acceptable losses. Time frame? 30 minutes before they relocate, sir. 30 minutes to decide between letting insurgent leaders escape or destroying a school full of children to stop them. Marcus looked at his soldiers, saw their expectant faces, saw how they waited for him to make the hard choice so they wouldn't have to carry the weight alone. Rodriguez, prep the strike team. Wong, stand by for mass casualty treatment. Turner, coordinate evacuation of surrounding buildings. Sir, Jake's voice was flat, emotionless. What about the school? Marcus felt something inside him break, a final piece of his humanity cracking under the weight of command responsibility. The school is acceptable collateral damage. The insurgent leadership must be eliminated. The strike was surgical, precise, devastatingly effective. The insurgent leadership was eliminated in a single coordinated assault. So were 67 children and 14 teachers. Marcus sat in his tent that night, writing his after-action report. His hands moved automatically, translating horror into acceptable military language. Collateral damage was within acceptable parameters for the strategic value gained. Insurgent leadership capabilities have been significantly degraded. Mission objectives achieved with minimal friendly casualties. Minimal friendly casualties. 0, in fact. His soldiers had performed flawlessly, efficiently, without hesitation or question. He had created the perfect military unit, soldiers who followed orders without moral consideration, who had learned to see civilians as statistics rather than people, who had been trained to accept that victory justified any cost. Tent flap opening, footsteps, Jake entered without permission, something the old Jake would never have done. His eyes were empty, his face expressionless. Colonel, I need to show you something. Jake pulled out his phone, showed Marcus a picture, his newborn daughter, Sarah, born just 3 days ago. She's beautiful, Rodriguez. You must be proud. I look at her picture, sir, and you know what I think. Marcus waited, though he dreaded the answer. I think about how efficiently we could clear a room with a child her size if she were an insurgent shield. I calculate the acceptable loss ratio. I wonder what kind of weapons they might hide near her crib. Jake's voice never changed tone, never wavered. He spoke about his daughter the same way he now spoke about mission targets. What have we become, sir? Marcus stared at the picture of baby Sarah, and for the first time in months, felt the full weight of what he had done. Not just to the enemy, not just to civilians, but to his own people. He had turned heroes into killers, protectors into destroyers, human beings into efficient weapons. We became what the mission required, Rodriguez. And what does that make us, Colonel? Marcus looked up from the photo, saw his reflection in Jake's empty eyes. Monsters, son. We became monsters. Operation Cleansing Dawn was declared a complete success. The insurgency was eliminated, the region pacified, peace restored. Marcus received his highest commendation, a medal for exceptional leadership in complex operational environments. But victory tasted like ash. His soldiers returned home as heroes, but Marcus watched them struggle with civilian life. Jake divorced his wife 6 months later, unable to connect with his daughter. Lisa Wong left medicine, unable to care for patients she subconsciously assessed for military threat. David Turner couldn't hold a job, seeing enemies everywhere. Marcus himself found sleep impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the children, heard their voices, felt the weight of the choices that had seemed so clear in the field but felt so monstrous in hindsight. "Daddy!" Emma threw herself into his arms when he returned home. "Did you save everyone?" Marcus held his daughter tight, breathing in her innocence, her simple faith in his goodness. "I completed the mission, sweetheart." "That means you saved everyone, right?" "That's what heroes do." Marcus closed his eyes, felt tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed in combat. "Sometimes, Emma, sometimes the price of saving some people is losing others. But you saved the good people, right, Daddy? You only hurt the bad guys?" The question pierced through him like shrapnel. Because the truth was more complex, more horrible than a child could understand. "I tried, baby girl. I tried to be a hero." "You are a hero, Daddy. You're my hero." As Emma played with his medals that evening, Marcus realized the cruelest irony of all: he had become exactly what military doctrine required, an officer capable of making impossible choices, of sacrificing humanity for strategic objectives, of creating soldiers who would follow orders regardless of moral cost. He had been promoted, decorated, praised for his effectiveness. He had achieved total victory. And in doing so, had lost everything that made victory worth having. Years later, Marcus would receive a letter from Jake Rodriguez. "Colonel, Sarah asked me today why I flinch when she drops her toys. I tried to explain combat reflexes, but the truth is simpler. I flinch because for just a moment, I hear the sound of debris falling in that school. I see her face and remember the faces of the children we accepted as collateral damage. I know you carry this weight too, sir. We all do." The mission was a success. The doctrine worked perfectly. We created peace through overwhelming force and acceptable losses. But I wake up every night wondering, if we had to become monsters to win, did we really win at all? The price of victory, Colonel, is that the victory belongs to the monsters we became, not the heroes we were. I hope you find peace, sir. I hope we all do. Marcus folded the letter, placed it in a box with dozens of others from his former soldiers. All asking the same question, all seeking the same impossible absolution. That night, as Emma slept peacefully in the next room, Marcus sat by his window, staring at his medals in the moonlight. He had saved lives by taking lives. He had created peace through war. He had protected innocence by sacrificing innocence. He had followed orders, completed missions, served his country with distinction. And in doing so, had learned the most terrible truth of all: sometimes the monster isn't the enemy you're fighting, it's the person you become while fighting them. Music fades to silence. The price of victory isn't counted in casualties or resources. It's measured in the pieces of your soul you trade away to achieve it. And some prices, once paid, can never be refunded. End credits roll. This story is dedicated to all those who have faced impossible choices in service to others, and to the recognition that true heroism often lies not in the victories we achieve, but in the humanity we manage to preserve while achieving them.